Hello, back again. Some days have passed. Reviewing the end of the footage, I was discussing how if I die under mysterious circumstances, then Quentin has no more problems, right? Then he has no more issues, right? And we're going to touch on that in a meaningful way, right? Once I get into the real nitty-gritty of what's occurring, right? Of the potential for man's capacity, right? As a practitioner. So, Trey, I wrote Fish. Did they write? Did they not write? I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's neither here nor there, right? I invite anyone to reach out to him, because I've written them 5 letters now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I won't be writing them again, right? Until this finds some sort of resolution, right? Right? Or I die, right? Which is to say, I can't write them, right? So Quentin's poisoning my mind with Trey. Trey's asking, right, is everything okay? Right? Is there anything we can do? Right? To which I said, right, you wrote, didn't you? He said, yes. I said, well, there's nothing else. What can you do? You know? And then he said, would playing Hamlet help? Right? Would me helping you play Hamlet help? Right? And of course I said, yes, I guess that it would. And he said, my daughter wants to play Ophelia. Right? Everything's daughters. Right? Why do you think that is? Daughters. Have you a daughter? Let her not walk in the sun. Right? And so, again, right, 9 years celibate, right, believed I had AIDS, right? Women. It's not my idea, right? I don't have these ideas, right? No sex for Brian, right? That's the standard I set for myself. And of course I don't have it, because if I did, I would have 1 foot in the grave already, right? But that's neither here nor there, right? Like this is the path that I'm on, right? And so, after a few days pass, right, Trey's daughter is in love with me, right? And so if we backtrack a little bit, right, he was doing the same thing with David Berlinski in the Discovery Institute before, right? And so in that way, I should have always read between the lines. You know, this is another, you know, I'm too honest for my own good, right? I couldn't see, I didn't have enough guile to see that he wanted me to continue, right? Or I didn't want to trust in guile, right? I didn't want to trust the voices in my head. Gosh. Such an unreasonable expectation, right? I don't have to say anything to this man, right? And so when I wrote David Berlinski, I wrote the Discovery Institute, right? They poisoned my mind with a bunch of bullshit. I thought of this girl, right, that I know in Seattle. Her name's Hannah. She's very charming, very beautiful. That I had met at Fish. She's in my novel. And so, boom, they poisoned me. They poisoned me, right? A memory is its own disease, right? You can read the 100 pages of the novel. It's included with this material to see how that works, right? But it's a mutation of a memory, right? It's the projection of the adept's perception, right? And so this extends unilaterally, right? To all of their memories, right? All of my memories, right? To the entire collective unconscious, right? And the more that you know, right, as far as diction, elocution, visage, physiognomy, etc., etc. And we're going to get all into this later, right? So, at the time, I was living on the street in L.A., right? And I said, okay, I'll go to Seattle, right? Because, again, this is all about me trying to trust, right, the process, right? Respect the craft, right? I didn't respect it at Tribeca, right? I lived in my fear, right? And so now I'm not living in my fear. I'm trusting him, right? And so I go all the way into Skid Row, right? Homeless services, right? Get all the way into the line. I say, yeah, I need a ticket to Seattle. Right? I had no money, no resources at all. Right? And so they bring me back and they say, okay, who's picking you up? And I say, the Discovery Institute. And they say, huh? And I say, yeah, it's this place. Right? And so they say, okay, what's the number? I have to speak to someone. I have to know that you're going to be released to a person. And so I found the number and I said, okay, you call this number, and they got him on speaker, and they told me to fuck off. Essentially, that's what they told me to do, right? That's what they actually told me to do, right? That I can't speak to anyone, right? That they've been getting my letters, right? And then I knew, it's more bullshit. It's more bullshit, more lies, right? And so as far as Hannah, I got a free phone, right? And I said, you text me or you fuck off. And then they admitted it was more bullshit. It's all lies, right? All bullshit, right? And so with Fish, it's obviously the same thing, right? Daughters, right? Have you a daughter, right? So Eliza's in love with me, right? And I have to get to New York. That's the story, right? That, they want to see that I can do it, right? And again, it's just evil. Like, that's all it is, right? It's just tit for tat, right? He thought that I did it to humiliate him, right? And I didn't at all. I've thought about it a lot. I didn't do that. That's not why I did it. And so he wants to destroy me. That's why I'm coming clean now, right? Because all that remains is vulgar evil. There's nothing else that remains, right? Perpetuating this torture upon us, right? It's not good for either of us, right? So I'm just dumping it all out there and saying, this is the score, this is what happened, this is your favorite filmmaker, right? And so I left, right? Spent all my money to get a bus ticket to Memphis. That's all I could get, right? No money, right? Living on the street. Slept in a disgusting hovel in the LAX parking garage for a week, right? Leading into me catching the bus, right? No food, no money. So in a perpetual Gnostic fervor, right? From the rhapsody of malnourishment and overexertion, overexhaustion, sleeping in the dirt, right? Constant paranoia, never trusting any of my thoughts, right? And so once I got to Memphis, I mean, it's all in the novel. I walked for some 4 days, right? And then eventually, right? I suspect, right? Because in the second letter that I sent Trey, right, I mentioned Hamlet. I didn't say it outright, but I said, if you want to do this thing, right, that Quentin's poisoning my mind with, right, that's not actually real at all, right, then you can call me, right? And so I suspect that he reached out to him and said, what is he talking about? Like, what is this guy going on about? Right? And so I heard in my head, I heard Trey, it was Quentin, it wasn't Trey. Oh, they're fucking with this guy. Right? And so then they revealed to me, right? Stranded in the street, middle America, right? Monologue. You heard the monologue, right? So I reached out to my family, and that's why I'm here in Alabama, because they live like 2 hours from where I was. Some 4 days of hitchhiking and sleeping in ramshackle, broke down houses in middle America. Much serenity, right? Great psychic torture all the while. And so I got back here, right? Finished my novel, like, to what I thought was finished, and now it's, it is finished of a sort. I have the 120 pages that are a final draft, but it's still unfolding now. We're still in the middle of it. And so it got to be Thanksgiving, right, and then Christmas, and somewhere between Christmas and New Year's, of course, the whole time they're laughing at me. The whole time they're like, ha, 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 very funny, right? Torturing me. I'm still like, I'm in my sad boy Brian phase, right? And I said, okay, I'm gonna see what it is. I'm gonna see what it's about, right? And so I decided on New Year's Eve, right, that I was going to take a stab at remote viewing, at practice, right, for the first time. And so I printed out this picture, right? You see her? So pretty, right? Stare through her apertures, right? It's easy, right? It's not difficult, right? Quentin jumps into my mind almost immediately. Says you can't force it, right? To which I say, who's forcing anything? This is how it's done. Right? And he tortured me all night, right? I did see her, right? She was at some sort of nightclub, but then he was on it, right? He was poisoning my mind with bullshit because he doesn't want me actually watching her, right? Right? They both don't want me watching her, right? Everything that he's done, right, has been under the arrogant supposition that he has some sort of advantage over me, right? That he knows something that I don't know, right? But he knows now that I am, in fact, a savage, psychic dragon. I am the millennial dragon. I'll find anyone. I'll destroy anyone. FBI, CIA, you need someone? I'll find them. And so we'll get into that now in a meaningful way. Right? There's a number of suppositions that you have to posit, right? You have to kind of set these boundaries. You have to draw these lines in the sand, right? And so the first of which is that life has an intellectual origin, right? That life is not an accident, right? Right? That mind, right, is the engine, right? Intention, right, is the fuel, right? Which resides equally within all of space. Pre-Brum and Bohm, right? The holographic model, right? In terms of information, every cubic centimeter of space has latent within it all of manifested creation, right? All stratas, all conditions, all convocations simultaneous, right? So, after I found her, right? After they tortured me all night, right? She's calling me her fine-ass novelist husband while she's fucking someone. It's all bullshit, right? It's all him and his wife playing these sick mind games, right? I said, okay. They had me suffering, right, all these months, right? And they're living their best lives, right? In their fucking millionaire mansion, right? Game on, right? So I bought a compass and I started going to work, right? Everything that you're about to see emerges from the same archetype, which is this, right? What is that? Seal of Solomon, Star of David, right? So it's divided into 4, right? Perpendicular, right? And so, with the 2, well, really with the 3, really with all of them, with all of them, right? The compass defines the edges of the forms that you're going to see from here, right? By the interrelationship of the vertexes and the edges to this form, right? It is an infinite wellspring, right, of wisdom, right? The fountainhead of inspiration, right? An immaculate sigil, right? The seal of Solomon, right? Those Chaldeans, ancient Hebrews, they were not primitive, right? This is a misnomer meant to beguile you, right, to the altar of science, right? And it's worth its own book. It's worth its own treatise, to be sure, right? And so, the first one that we're going to point out, right, is this one, right? Ezekiel's wheel, right? The circle is subdivided into 11, right? And then there's another circle inside of it, right? And so we have 22, right? And this is actually upside down, right? And so I'm not going to go on and on about this, though I'll point out 2 things about it. Right? The first thing, right, is that if you look here, right, you have the letter Aleph, A, and then El, Lamed, right, on the same column of the circle, the same slice of the pie, right? And what is that? The divine prefix Al, Alchemy, right? El Shaddai, right? Right? It's not in any of the books, right? Almost like they knew what they were doing, right? And so the second thing that I'll point out is, what is this, right? Is this a chromosomal map, right? 23 pairs, right? And so what does that look like? Letter Aleph, first letter of the alphabet, right? Basic structural components of each cell, right? Shockingly similar to the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Okay, so moving on. Mind everywhere, right? Man's mind, God's mind, it's the same thing, right? Intention, right? You push a thought out, right? To find a target, right? Right? So, substructural underpinning, right? Scaffolding, geometric scaffolding, right? Is the celestial skeleton, right? magnetic archetypes, right, which space collapses around, right, until friction against itself becomes so great it has to ejaculate. It's too much, right? And so that's what springs manifested life into existence, right? That this is the engine, gravitation, radiation, right? Pressure conditions through thinking, right? Right? Okay. So, I'll take a second to point this out, right? I also thought, okay, Quentin, fuck me, what can I do, right? What can I do? Right? I'm an artist, right? And so, there's a still life, first one, right? Pretty fucking good, I'd say. Right? Not perfect, but you show me your first one, right? Study of the hand, right? Peter J. Carroll, right? Right? You see the hand, right, in your dream, right? That's how you control the dream, right? Other side, right? Single point perspective. Me casting a spell on a witch on the ocean, right? Right there. Very funny. Right? What's that? Movie theater, the movie critic. Very funny. Hilarious. So, if we take a circle as the ultimate expression of God, right? Of the bounded creation, right? Seemingly infinite, though only seeming. Right? If I divide the circle, right, along the diameter, it goes 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, etc., etc., etc. Right? And so if you put 2 along the diameter, you can't put any more. Right? And so if you put 4 along the diameter, you get this. Right? What's that? The Gra arrangement? The tree of life? Right? So that's the diameter. That's the point. It's the 4. Right? 10 circles, right? 10 Sephirot out of nothing. Sefer Yetzirah. Very funny. Right? And so, eventually I quickly graduated to this. Who's that? That same pretty girl. So pretty, I'd pay for it, wouldn't I? $500 an hour. I can pour a gallon of cum on her. Very funny, to be clear. Right? I don't think that she is that. Right? I think she's in over her head. Right? But eventually, right, it degenerated into this. Right? What do you think that did? Right? When I was spitting on it and screaming at it. Right? You think she heard it? Very funny. What's that around it? The Shimham Farash, right? 72 angelic triads, right? And what's that around it, right? 4 nonograms, right? And so this is how it's done, right? Like that's the point, right? Quentin doesn't do these things, right? He doesn't know anything about this, right? I'm not interested in power. I thought I was dying, right? That's the point, right? And so that's why I'm coming clean now, right? Because all that's left is evil, right? Right? And so, the last thing that I'll mention, right? If this is 10, right? Because it's 4, right? Then what you can't see behind here, right? Because we have that pretty fucking hooker right there in the middle, is that this is 8, right? That's 8, right? So this is the next one, right? And so if you have 8 right here, right? And then 7 above and 7 below, what is that? That's 22, right? 22 foundational letters, the Sefer Yetzirah. 10 Sephirot out of nothing, right? 22 foundational letters, right? And so what I'm saying right now, right, is that the foundations, right, of Hebrew as a language, right, of the Sefer Yetzirah, right, are derived from their analytical dissection of the subdivision of the circle, right? And this is why they chose the Seal of Solomon, right? This one, right? Because you can use this, right, to manifest essentially anything, right? Essentially anything that can be constructed, right? Through understanding the exchange between the vertexes and the edges, right? Seemingly infinite, right? And so, if we take some time to dissect this, right, there's 44 circles, right, that are in this, right? 8, 7, 6, 5, right, equals 44, right? And so, if you take a compass, right, the big circle is divided into 12, the 12 signs of the zodiac, right? Right? And so if I take my compass, right, my instrument of divinity, right, and I cast an arc, right, from each of these 12 points over the top of all 44 circles, right, you get this around the perimeter, right? That's what that comes from. This is not arbitrary lines, right? It's through the interrelationship of the small circles with the big circle. And it gives you, that's right, 528 arcs. New Age bullshit. Why do you think they say that? That's why, right? 10 Sephiroth out of nothing, right? 22 foundational letters, right? Right? So this took me probably 6 hours, right? 7 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, right? This is how it's done, right? You could print out a picture, right? And that gives you something, right? But the more effort you put into it, right, the more you've captured their soul. And what's that around her eye? 2 interlaced pentagrams. What's that on the top, right? Boom, 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 right? And so if we take a look at this, right, we have 2 pentagrams, one pointing up, right, one pointing down, right? And so in my mind, right, a lot of times my mantra will be conjuring, right, banishment, right, possession, right, both of them, right? Right? Some game, right? It's the same game. It's not a different game, right? And so now, I know that he hates me, right? And I know that I can find anyone, right? There's nothing stopping either of us, right? He knows that he can't break my mind, right? I know, right, that I'm not interested in playing these games, right? I could, we can keep going, right? We could keep going, right? And when I tell you, right, that he's slipped into a psychic trance, right, and created a bridge with me and put a fucking bullet through my headshot to send me into shock from 4,000 miles away, right? You know that it's no joke. When I tell you, right, that he's injected himself with needles, right, to make me believe he's poisoning me with AIDS, this is no joke, right? This is no joke. And so that's why I'm coming clean, because it's a dangerous game. All that's left is vulgar evil. I can do these things too, right? I can go to a mortuary, right? I can buy a human brain, right? Hook it up to jumper cables, right? Blast it with ultraviolet light, right? Meditate on the location of the celestial bodies in the air, right? Which radiate the same light, right? And blast anyone's brain, right? Like an electric chair from 4,000 miles away, right? And this is what he's doing when he puts a bullet hole through it, right? And he's damaging himself as well, right? It's all there in the novel, right? It's all there in those first 10 pages, right? As far as magic is the engendering of electrical fields, right? That's what's actually occurring, right? That you, as an adept, you as a practitioner, right, are using your neuronal firing, using your intention, using your conscious awareness, right, to engender, creating an electrical condition, a magnetic condition, right? And so when you project it, right, as intention, right, there is no linear, right? There's no straight lines in nature, right? It radiates out, right, as a sphere. If an instrument is played underwater, right? If the bow is raked across the violin underwater and it would somehow work, I don't think that would work, but I'll find enough example, right? The wave is not going to go in a straight line, right? It's going to radiate out, right, as a sphere from the violin in all directions, right? And so this is what occurs in the mind with magic, right? This is what occurs, right? That you create this thing, right? And then you send it out with intention and it scans your body as it goes out, right? Because it goes out omnidirectionally, instantaneously. Right? So, this is how people heal the sick. Right? Nuns, the laying of hands, prayer, right? Uplifting your soul to God, right? These things are all lawful, right? These things are all valid, have no cost, right? And in fact, right, will fortify you, right? Conversely, you can use Gnosticism for mechanical ends too, right? That you can take wisdom and destroy far easier, right? As soon as something comes into manifestation, right, it's barreling towards death from that moment. From the moment of conception, right, to the moment of expiration, right? And so sorcery, right, the dark arts, right, it's just a push in the right direction, right? But you push yourself as well. That's the point, right? And so we've all been aged measurably, right? I'm not interested in buying tumor cultures, right? And flaying open the 7 myofiber layers of muscle of the human heart, right? And then stitching it back together, right? And blasting Quentin, right, with it, right? I'm not interested, right, in annihilating the protons in his brain or his heart by implanting a single positron, right? Right? I'm not interested in doing that, right? And so, here's another example. Who's that? Sam Jackson? What'd that take me? 3 hours? Not long. Not that long. And what's that around it, right? In Hebrew. Ezekiel 25:17, right? I swallow your soul with your most famous lines. Very funny. Very funny. Right? And who's that? Mr. Mike Simpson himself. Very funny. Very funny. Right? Angelic triad, triple hay of the Shimhem Farash. Right? El Shaddai. Right? Lamed Mem Lamed Resh Moloch. Right? And who's that? On the other side. Olivia Wilde. Right? No crystal ball, right? These are all people that have met with him or said that they are in the Movie Critic, right? This is not, no magic required, right? And so, what do you see with those, With those eyes, right? Why do you think those pupils are so pinpointed, I wonder why, right? No magic required, right? Olivia Wilde's a drug addict. Right? She's addicted to Percocet. She's addicted to Oxy. What happened, bitch? Right? You break your ankle? You break your wrist playing volleyball on the beach? Right? So funny. Very funny. What's this? Shimham Farash? Right? Very funny. Very funny. What's that? Oil painting, first oil painting ever, right? 10 Sephiroth out of nothing, right? A little messy, maybe, but you show me your first one, right? He's been watching the whole time, right? He knows. He's been seeing all these things, right? And so every time I tried to see Allison, right, he poisoned my mind with bullshit about her being a prostitute because he didn't want me to actually watch her. That's the point, right? And so, who's that? Ari Emanuel, right? What's that? Right? 17 equilateral triangles, right? 51 subdivisions of the circle, right? Right? And so let's just talk about tactics for a minute because this is a really great one, right? Let's say you want to find someone. Let's say this has anyone that you want to find in it, right? And so I'm not going to talk about how you divide it, right? But I've already given you the keys to the kingdom, right? It's through the seal of Solomon, right? Right? And I'll write on it eventually. Right? But let's say you want to find him, right? You say you want to find somebody, and you put their face in the middle of this, right? And what's that? The compass and the square, right? Right? Gravitating, radiating pentagrams, right? Very funny. Lamed Mem, Lamed Resh, hilarious, Moloch, right? You can stare, right, through his eyes, right through his fucking eyes, right? Not anywhere else, right? For not long, say 2 minutes, right? 120 seconds, right? Right? And then you go to the top, right? And you recite the ineffable. Yod, Yod Hey, Yod Hey Va, Yod Hey Va Hey. All the way down, 3 times. Yod, Yod Hey, Yod Hey Va, Yod Hey Va Hey. And then you go to the next one, and you do it again, right? And then you go to the next one, and you do it again, and you go to the next one, and you do it again, right? And you do that for, say, 3 minutes, right? And then you go back to his eyes, right? And then you look at his eyes, right, for 3 minutes, right? And then you go back to this, right? And you recite the ineffable, right, for another 3 minutes, right? And then you go back and you stare at this for 4 minutes. And you keep going all the way around, right? You go as long as you... I don't have to do this, right? Right? I'm closer to God than anyone, right? I live in a perpetual Gnostic trance, right? But this is what it takes, right? This is how you heal the sick. This is how you destroy souls, right? Absolute devotion, right? Absolute stillness, absolute contemplation of divinity, right? And so Quentin wields this power, right, in great error, right, to make people bend to his will, right? That's the point, right? Right? Harvey Weinstein, very funny, right? The dark arts, what a joke. And I admit, I blew it. I know he hates me, right? I know he hates me, right? But what I'm saying is, this is the game, right? I know the game, right? Better than he does. Right? So he pushes a thought out, right? For me to question him about cinema speculation, right? Then, when I don't do it, he pushes another thought out, right? That he has a daughter who loves me, right? All bullshit, right? Then he pushes another thought out, right? That the Discovery Institute wants to help me play Hamlet, right? Bullshit, right? And this girl I met, Hannah, she's in love with me. Bullshit, right? Then he pushes another thought out, right? That Trey Anastasio's daughter, Eliza, wants to play Ophelia to my Hamlet, and that she loves me. All bullshit. All bullshit to humiliate me, right? Right? Thought forces, right? Albert Pike, Morals and Dogma, right? This book, right? Page 2. A thought is a force, and philosophy should be an energy, right? Whose effects and ends should be towards the amelioration of mankind. And he's not talking about these things, right? That's not what he's referring to, right? He's referring to feeding the needy. He's referring to being pious, like doing good works, painting a masterpiece, making a great movie, right? Right? But it's a perfect comparison, right? And so who's on the back of this, right? Sarah Staudinger, right? Voluptuous fucking skank. Very funny, right? Sefer Yetzirah, right? What is this, right? Convocation of 6 septagrams, right? 42 subdivisions of the circle, right? All with the same same Hebrew letter, pardon me, not Greek, which is Pe, right? Associated with barrenness and fertility, right? And so if you go clockwise, right, you have this long and winding road, each of the columns. It's oscillating. This is an oscillating electric waveform. However, if you go counterclockwise, right, you have the straight and narrow path to God, right? And so what do you see when you look at it, right? Right? Because there's 2 expressions of the letter Pe, right? If it's bent in, right, it's every letter but the last letter of the word, right? Therefore, it is the more fruitful of the 2. Therefore, right, that's the one that represents symbolically the healthy reproductive organ, right? So all those are marked out, right? And where did I make this? Catholic Mass, right? This page is imbued with the Holy Spirit. It's the same game, right? And so what's that? What's that? Is that a disgusting ovarian cyst, right? Full of hair and pus and bile, right? Right? Quentin projects a thought. It's the same game. It's the same game. He projects a thought into my mind, right? About a daughter that he doesn't have, making porno, right? In Park City the week before he speaks, right? Right? So, what a game, what a joke. I poison your mind with visions of hideous malignancies, right? It's the same game. It's not a different game, it's the same game, right? I project that, right? This disgusting thing, right? To the organ of the soul, right? It's the same game, right? Who's that? Karen Halby, right? CEO of Sony. So funny. Who's left? Right? Paul Walter Hauser, right? These are all people who met with him. No magic required, right? Robert De Niro, this what you want to be remembered for, Robert? Right? Because I'll tell you, no one's going to remember Goodfellas, right? You're in league with a sick sorcerer. That's all anyone's going to remember, right? And I suspect that you don't know. I suspect that he didn't tell you. He told everyone a half-truth, right? And he's been trying to destroy me when I gave him half an event, right? So he told all of them that he spoke to me without telling them that he used his occult mind prowess and didn't actually say anything to me. And he told me that he wanted me to question him without saying definitively that, and I should have read between the lines, right? I admit that, right? I blew it, right? I was a candy-ass faggot in that way, right? I was too noble, right? I was too proud, right? All the things, right? I never would have humiliated him if he had been honest with me, right? I know that he knows that. Right? I'm not. My life is a perpetual humiliation ritual, right? I'm not interested in humiliating other people, right? But in my mind, right? I thought, oh, you're still playing this game with me. You still don't want to take my writing, right? And so now I'm coming clean, right? Because all that's left is evil. There's nothing but evil left, right? And so when I tell you, right, that I need help, right? This is not a joke, right? What's this? Baphomet go to Mindy's, right? Who's that? Allison? Right? Took her under my wing. Very funny. Right? It's not a joke. It's very dangerous. Right? Right? There is no legal precedent for psychic warfare, right? There is no legal precedent for psychic assassination, right? And so I need help. That's why I'm here now. That's why I'm saying these things, right? Pope Francis, right? You survived pneumonia? I allege to excommunicado Quentin Tarantino. He's not Catholic. Doesn't mean you can't excommunicate him. Every rabbi in Tel Aviv, right? Every rabbi the world over, right? He betrays your heritage, right? Ezekiel, right? Scatters a third to the winds, right? A third die by pestilence, a third die by the sword, because they don't hold to their commandments, right? You can't abuse God's power, right? Like, he can hate me, right? He can tell everyone everything that he's told them about me, right? Right? That's fine, right? I don't care about that. Never did, right? But if he used my scene, and I suspected he did, and now it's beyond that. It's beyond that, right? I gave him that $1 billion idea, right? I have to have therapy for the rest of my life, right? If the two of us don't come together, right, we both exist as psychic phantoms in the other one's mind, right? Forever. This is the condition, right? There is no redemption, right, without us coming together, right? It's a sick case study in pathological, nasty, just disgusting base occult remote viewing. He has spent so much time remote viewing me. I've never spent any time staring at his picture, and I don't have to. What do you think he was doing on his birthday? I wonder. Right? And I could say a lot more about it, and I'm not going to. Right? I was right there. Right? That's the point. Right? Anytime he thinks of me, boom, I'm there in the room. He's in the room with me. Right? We have this perpetual connection, right? And so that's my point when I say we have to come together, right? Or, right? He has to pay me a lot of money, right? Because I have to have therapy for the rest of my life. I will have extreme PTSD for the rest of my life. There's no way around it, right? If we come together, right, and we make real memories, right? And we have some sort of crepuscular foundation, right? Then when the other comes into the other's mind, right? You could say, no, I have these experiences with this man, right? But now it's just sick. Now it's just sick, right? Paul Schrader, right? Writer-director of First Reformed. Martin Scorsese, director of The Last Temptation of Christ, right? Director of Silence. This is your protege, right? This is who you say is holding up the mantle, right? Perhaps you've always known and turned a blind eye. Now I'm calling you out. You publicly denounce him, or you're blasphemous heretics just like him, right? This isn't my game, right? It's not Quentin's game, it's God's game, right? And when you abuse it, right, you're a demiurgic demon. That's what you are, right? Movie, expressions of will, right? All these things, right? What's this, right? What's that? It's my ticket from Tribeca, right? And I admit that I was foolish, right? I admit it, right? But I can't, right? I have to come clean, right? Because it's dangerous now, right? I don't want to play this game anymore, right? I assume that he could assassinate me at any moment, right? Because he has all the money, right? He has all the resources. And he can't break my mind. Right? So, this is my intent, right? Anyone who casts their allegiances with Quentin Tarantino, right? I reserve the right to torture forever, right? Let's just say that it's all bullshit, right? Let's just say that it's all a lie, right? Which it's not, but let's just say that it is. That I'm mad as a loon, right? Like everyone around me says, right? If that's the case, then I got a great novel out of it, right? And Quentin can make a public statement, right, denouncing the dark arts, saying that it's all bullshit. He's not well in his mind. I wish him well, right? He could say that, right? He's not the reason I canceled the Movie Critic, right? I canceled it because Brad Pitt was blackmailing me, which again, that's all bullshit, right? That's more guile, that's more cunning, right? But there is at least a truth somewhere in there, right? Right? So this is the game. These are the tactics, right? And the fact is, right, that he doesn't have the stamina, right? He doesn't have the capacity to protect everyone around him perpetually, right? He has a family. He has people who depend upon him. I have nothing but my mind. No kids, right? And so, this is the game, right? You want to cast your allegiances with a sorcerer, right? Right? It behooves me not at all to do it to him. He's sick, right? He gets something out of it, right? He uses soul energy to cast spells upon the world, right? And this is why there's gaps between the movies, right? Because it's this great spiritual exercise, right? This great transmutation, right? And so in that way, right, if we come together, and we never will, I know, right? But if we did, it's the ultimate transmutation, right? And I do see now that I had to reveal myself in full, right? Because everything that he said about me, he was going to say it either way. Right? I could keep going, but I don't think that there's really any need to. Right? So, you see the art with a capital A, right? This is how it's done, right? The highest levels of understanding, right? Have you using the magnetic pole of the earth, right, to triangulate your position, right? So if you know a name, you know a face, you know a location, right? The more you know, the easier it is to find them, right? The holographic universe, right? All of creation is embedded within every cubic centimeter of space, right? And the conscious field right? That's filtered through our brain, right? The soul, right? The engine of the soul can push its awareness out, right? To infinity, right? And so that's the point, right? He wants to say nothing to me, right? He still wants to think, oh, I don't have to say anything to him. I don't have to acknowledge him, right? And so now it's just dangerous. It's just dangerous, right? Ask any rabbi, right? Ask any holy man, any pious man, right? Ask Alan Moore, right? Ask Peter J. Carroll, right? Ask Jonathan Barlow Gee, right? It's nothing for me. It's nothing, right? I set up a board, right? Right? I torture anyone. Same tactics, same tricks, right? On the highest level of expression, right? And so I'm not interested in doing that, right? Maybe this is the performance, right? And you have nothing to worry about. But I'll tell you, right? If it's just me, right? If it's still me, still sitting here, right? And he's torturing me, right? Later this year, around my birthday, when he starts using more of my material, right? That he stole, right? This is how he writes his movies. Then I reserve the right to torture every actor on that set. Very funny. Some game, what a joke, right? He's allowed to hate me. That's fine, right? He's allowed to call me an asshole, right? Just like I'm allowed to call him an asshole, right? All of this could have been avoided, right? With a single sentence of sincerity, right? He could have wrote me a single letter in December of 2023, January of 2024, and said, I see the light in you, right? I appreciate you, right? And I would have took that to all my bullshit theater auditions, right? And they would have given me every job, I'm sure, right? It would have given me something, right? Or, right? He could have accepted my letter, which I sent right when he canceled the film, right? He could have said, okay, dude, let's talk about it, right? He could have told me as soon as he set up Tribeca that it was about me, sincerely, right? He could have told me, he could have sent a single anonymous email anytime between then, right? And told me. He could have sent someone out while I was waiting in line for 3 hours, right? He could have accepted my letter, right? He could have asked me to my face, right? Got any questions, right? He could have played his game completely, right? And not told the press, right? And then not humiliated himself. He put his whole career on his psychic mind prowess, right? And God burned him, right? And so when he didn't get what he wanted, right? He supposed that it was because I didn't understand what was occurring, right? And so he's been torturing me, right? And wants me to blow my head off. That's what he wants, right? And so you can believe me, everyone's allowed to think that I'm the craziest man in the world, right? That's fine, right? And I'm allowed to say that he's the most evil man in the world, right? Ask Tribeca, right? Ask Robert De Niro, right? Ask Salman Rushdie, right? Ask Andrew Wyeth, his agent, right? Ask Mike Simpson. Ask everyone that works at the staff at the front desk of 9601 Wilshire, WME, right? Ask Trey Anastasio from Fish. Ask David Berlinski of the Discovery Institute. Ask anyone at the Discovery Institute, right? I wrote all these people, right? As in an effort to show him how remorseful I am, to try to find a path to redemption. And now I know that there is no path, right? He hates me, right? And he's interested in paying me a bunch of money, maybe, or not, and perpetuating this diseased relationship with me forever, right? And there's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing I can do about that. Right? So, I need your help. Every holy man. Everyone with a moral compass at all, right? He's not allowed to use these powers to destroy me, right? I'm not interested in continuing this game, and so I'm coming clean. And I'm begging for a reprieve, right? To ask to be relieved, right? To have the prayers of the world. That's what I'm asking for, right? We can't persist in this way. We can't. He's aged himself 5 years, right? At least. From A to B. Right? I mean, I admit I was too honest for my own good, right? That was my shot. Right? And he hates me now. But he went too far. It's just evil. It's just evil. He could have said anything. He could have explained himself any step of the way, right? And I would have been listening, and I would have got it, and I would have given him whatever he wanted. But he wanted me to listen to the voices in my head. That's what he wanted. That's what interested him. I know he would never do that to anyone he respected. Right? And so that's why I left. Because I felt that he doesn't respect me still. Right? And it was so petty. It was so stupid. Right? Of course, I never would have not given him what he wanted. If I had known, right, that he set the whole thing up for me, right? Who am I? Right? It's De Niro Khan, right? It's his thing. Right? It's not my thing. Right? And I never would have not given him what he wanted if I knew he was going to try to destroy me. Right? Of course. With the most disgusting, base occult tactics that are as old as time immemorial. Right? So, that's all. I guess that's everything. It's just shy of an hour. I felt that it would be an hour. I don't really know what else to say, right? You see the depth of the prowess, right? You draw the picture by hand, right? Draw the sigil with the compass, right? Right? Technically authorized, valid, right? You cast the sigil into the mind's eye, right? You bounce it off of the magnetic pole of the earth, right? And you'll find your target every time. That's the point, right? He doesn't do these things. He just stares at pictures and closes his eyes. And now, because I didn't bend to his will, he wants me to die. He wants to destroy me. And so I'm sorry, Quentin. I am. I know you don't care. You want to sit in your ivory tower? I should have given you what you wanted. I know I had it. You got what you wanted. You humiliated me. Very funny. Very funny. I'll show him. Right? Love, honesty. What am I, a 12th century troubadour? We have to come together. You know? If not the two of us, then me and I've been going to mass. I've been seeking absolution in God because that's the only place, right? And so, I have no resources. I have no money. I'm supposed to be an artist, right? And so I have my novel, right? The 100 pages are included with it, right? With all this material, I mean. And I'm letting it go. I know that he hates me. I humiliated him. Unaware, ignorant, too proud, too honest. Bullshit. It's all bullshit. I know that. And now he's humiliated me. And so, enjoy the role, Brad Pitt. And if I torture your psyche forever, you know who to thank for it. I know I have no right to do these things any more than he does, right? But if anyone ever did, so that's it. That's the story of the Movie Critic. That's what's happened. That's why he canceled the movie, right? Sundance. He says, "Oh, I'll make the movie when my son's old enough." Right? That's me. I'm his prodigal son. He's my spiritual father. I know I've emerged as the most dangerous psychic alive. I know it. And he does too. And I never wanted to. I never wanted to play this game. You asked the Monroe Institute. God in heaven, Heavenly Father, protect my soul from those who seek it. Protect my body from those who would destroy it. God in heaven, Heavenly Father, protect my soul from those who seek it. Protect my body from those who would destroy it. 789-01677-333-244-19855 4312318532111 Rotas opera tenita reposator. Hey, art our Father, who art in heaven. Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespass, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Yod Vo Sedor repo tenet opera rotas 112358132134 558914423337761097. God in heaven, Heavenly Father, protect my soul from those who seek it. Protect my body from those who would destroy it. God in heaven, Heavenly Father, protect my soul from those who seek it. Protect my body from those who would destroy it. God in heaven.